Paul McGuire, and I'm continuing on about that doorway that leads you out of the prison of what we call reality into a new heaven and a new earth, a different dimension where you no longer die. Now, I want to challenge you with something, though. You say, well, I'm not, this reality isn't a prison. Well, that's ridiculous, because this reality ends in death. No matter what you do, you're going to die. And you have a limited amount of time. Let's say you have 100 years. That's just an arbitrary number. And you're not even looking good for those 100 years. So let's say it's 100 years, and then you die. That's a short period of time. That's a prison sentence. So no matter how much wealth you get, no matter what kind of relationships you have, no matter what you acquire, how much beauty or fun you have in life, or how many dreams you make true, 100 years in contrast with infinity is not even a second. It's not even a nanosecond. You're not here very long. So you need to get out of this reality. Now, this world can be beautiful. There's great beauty in this world. And there are many good things available. And there's dreams that you've been given that you should pursue. Because you were called to live in this reality. And when I say it's a prison, that's not totally accurate. It's a prison in many respects. And ultimately it's a prison. But great joy and great beauty and great accomplishment and great creativity can be had in this reality. So I don't want to prejudicially define this reality in a false way. This reality has amazingly wonderful things, and it has some amazingly disturbing things. But let's look at your life, my life, in contrast with the global scene right now. We have an economy in America that is in a very serious condition. It's going to collapse economically. It's being propped up by printing money from nothing. That's what quantitative easing by the Federal Reserve is a code word for printing money from nothing. Excuse me. So the economy is artificially being kept alive. We have a global military threat that involves Russia, the US, China, Syria, Iran, Israel, North Korea, the EU, Great Britain, and just about every nation in the world. And the reason we have this global threat is because we have a limited amount of resources on planet Earth. We have a tremendous need for oil. And behind the scenes, at the very top of the pyramid that I was describing, we have the most powerful forces on planet Earth in terms of banking and finance and politics and governments and the military, creating what they call a new world order. Because in their human wisdom, they have determined that the new world order will solve all mankind's problems. Well, it will probably solve some of their problems, but it's not going to solve your problems. And everything that is happening eventually is being orchestrated to bring about this new world order, which involves a one world economic system, a one world religion, and a one world government. This is predicted by Daniel in Daniel chapter 9. It's predicted in Revelation 13. And this one world government will be eventually be headed by a false Christ called the Antichrist. So we're headed quickly towards this new world order. This new world order is a counterfeit of the kingdom of God. It's a counterfeit of the kingdom of heaven. It's like when Adam and Eve put on the fig leaves to cover their nakedness. This is a humanistic attempt to build utopia or to build a perfect world without God, which is impossible. Because let's say, hypothetically, we were able to build this perfect world. Well, you're still going to die. You're still going to be diseased and aged. Now, there is an invisible elite in our world today that believe that they're going to solve that problem through transhumanism, through genetic engineering, through cyborgs, through androids, through interspecies breeding, and they believe that they're going to create clones or some kind of Superman through genetic alteration or mutation that will live forever. And then the plan simply is to take somebody's dying human body and download their consciousness and memories out of their dying human body into their brand new, man-made, created artificial body, which would be a transhuman body, either created as an android, a robot, a combination of both, or through the changing of the DNA structure. And they're very serious about this, and they're spending trillions of dollars to make this happen. But that won't be available to you anyway. That will be available to the very elite. Because in the process of making this new world order, they're removing the middle class, which is probably would constitute a large number of those of you that are watching. The middle class is disappearing on purpose, because the New World Order is a new feudal system with the kings and the queens and the workers are the slaves. That's why the symbol of the Illuminati is a pyramid. The pharaoh was a god king, and the slaves built the pyramids. The Illuminati is modeled after that. It's an occult hierarchical structure. And by the way, towards the top of the Illuminati, we have the all-seeing eye of Horus, or Lucifer, which reveals that it's an occult symbol. And at the very top of the pyramid, we have the place where the elite, the secretive Luciferian elite, rule the world. And in case there's any confusion as to what the nature of this entity or this pyramid is symbolizing, it's defined in the words at the base of the pyramid, which in Latin say Novus Order Seclorum, which means new order of the ages, or new world order. So that's what that's about. And the dollar, the reason it's on the dollar is for a number of reasons. On the back of the US dollar also, on the right-hand side, is a bird, which many people think is an eagle, which is really a phoenix. The phoenix is an occult symbol, an occult bird, which goes back to ancient Phoenicia and the Phoenicians. And it plays a primary role in Bible prophecy and what is called the secret occult destiny of America, which I deal with in my book, A Prophecy of the Future of America, behind me, and in a lot of my free articles that you can get on the website, paulmcguire.org, paulmcguire.com, and e-blasts and YouTubes and stuff, and all kinds of free information if you want further research. So the phoenix also is the proposed name for the world currency that may arrive on the scene by 2018. Now, we have to understand that there is a secret occult plan for the destiny of America. And it was developed in the mid-1600s by Sir Francis Bacon, who wanted to create America as the head of the New World Order and also the new Atlantis. Now, many of the elite believe that prior to the flood of Noah, they don't believe in Noah necessarily, but they believe in a great flood, there were very highly advanced civilizations, scientifically and technologically, like Atlantis, and the evidence for civilizations at that level would be the Great Pyramids, and the Incan monuments and the Mayan monuments and other pyramidal structures, and Atlantis, which they think they've discovered off the coast of Cuba, which is in the area of the Bermuda Triangle, and there are these massive architectural ruins which have pyramids and very, very strange stuff down there underwater. And they believe that Atlantis was the model for what America should become before the flood destroyed Atlantis. However, Plato, who was a philosopher that came after the flood, developed a philosophy in what was called a writing he did called Plato's Republic, in which a society that he based on Atlantis, because he had information about Atlantis, a highly advanced society would arise that would be governed by a group of 10 philosopher kings, or a scientific elite, which George Orwell referred to as the scientific elite. And they would rule the world. So the Bacon's vision for America, which is an occult vision, he was a Rosicrucian leader, and the teachings of the Rosicrucians were passed on to the Illuminati. They conceived that America would be a new Atlantis and the New World Order. That's why the architecture in Washington, D.C., the Washington Monument is a giant phallic symbol, the Capitol Dome is a womb. This goes back to Babylon, the Tower of Babel, with Semiramis and Nimrod, and it's all linked and modeled after the architecture of ancient Egypt, where you see the pyramid, which is a womb, and the phallic-like architecture. You see the same architecture in the Vatican and throughout the world. And this is highly symbolic occult literature, because in a nutshell, there's a repetition of imagery, and the repetition of imagery is the dome and the phallic symbol. The phallic symbol obviously represents the male sexual organ. The dome represents the womb. This goes back to Babylon and the Tower of Babel, which means the gate of God, where it was rumored that ancient legend said that Semiramis, who was formerly a harlot who married Nimrod, the builder of Babylon, who created Babylon to be a monument that would reach the heavens so that they could worship the host of heaven, and that meant the fallen angels, was a cosmic portal into another dimension. Now, as the legend went, Semiramis killed Nimrod because she was having an illicit affair. And she had to conceive a lie to the people. So she told the people that Nimrod ascended into the heavens and he became the sun god. He was the sun. So Nimrod became the sun god Ra. And other names for Nimrod or Ra is Osiris or Apollo or Zeus or Prometheus. And then she began to bear the evidence of pregnancy from her illicit affair, but it was long after Nimrod was dead. So she had to concoct a fable to explain to the people that how she got pregnant, since Nimrod was long gone. And she devised a fable where the male organ of Nimrod was chopped into pieces, and the purpose of the phallic architecture and the phallic symbols, she said to the people that a phallic symbol, that she supernaturally impregnated herself with a phallic symbol because of supernatural power. Now that occult belief system, which is mirrored in the architecture all over the world of a dome and a phallic symbol, like the Washington Monument, is built on the idea that the phallic symbol will impregnate the womb to conceive a God-man. This was the basis of Egyptian mythology. This is the basis of the Egyptian pyramids and the Egyptian religion and the god Ra. And the idea is that in the future, the phoenix, which is this ancient super civilization that started in Samaria, and Phoenicia, where it was the general location, which was in the Middle East, by the way, which was the general location of Mount Hermon, where the Watchers, or the fallen angels, descended upon the earth. And as it says in Genesis 6, the fallen angels mated with human women, producing the Nephilim. And the Nephilim were a hybrid race of fallen human angels and human women that produced the Nephilim, that were the giants of old, and they were super intelligent. And thus that was the source of the advanced scientific technology and science that came from the fallen angels. Now you may think this is far-fetched, and that's fine, but here's the thing you're going to have to deal with. The translation for the fallen angels comes from the word, it actually says in the Bible, the sons of God entered the daughters of men. That's talking about sexually. But the sons of God, the translation is B'nai Elohim, which means fallen angels. Now that's the Hebrew definition, and it's the correct definition. And the Hebrew scholars were meticulous. So it was the belief of the rabbinic scholars and ancient Israel and the Hebrew scholars. It was their firm belief theologically that the correct interpretation of that passage of Scripture implied 100% that the sons of God were not some race of men, goat men or whatever, as Christians later adopted 100 years after the death and resurrection of Christ. They were, according to the Hebrew scholars, fallen angels. That is the exact definition of the word B'nai Elohim. And they impregnated human women. Now, this idea that fallen angels did not mate with human women didn't come until way after the church was around for at least 100 years or more, around the time of Constantine, where there was great embarrassment about public discussion that, fallen angels would mate with human women. It was kind of like, an unpleasant subject. But we have to remember the original church believed that it was fallen angels that mated with human women. That was the original belief of the early church. It was modified much later on. And it was the only belief of the Hebrew scholars and the rabbinic scholars that the fallen angels mated with human women. And that's substantiated in the book of Jude. Now, we also know that the reason for the flood of Noah has everything to do with the fallen angels mating with human women. Because when you do a thorough study, and I detail this in my book, Prophecy of the Future of America, these fallen angels, you see, are essentially demons. And demons cannot exist on the earth without a physical host body, whether it's an animal or a human. They need a host body. That's when Jesus Christ cast demons out of people, the demons in them screamed that he would send them into pigs or whatever, because a demon can't stay in the physical earth without a host body. Many believe that the reason Satan, when he approached Adam and Eve in the garden, was in the body of a serpent, was because he created a host body, or he couldn't have stayed in Eden. Okay, so these fallen angels were very aggressive in their genetic experimentation. They created satanic religions that involved very perverse sexual orgies of all kinds, drug usage, the occult, human sacrifice. The demons taught this to the pagan nations. And that's why the Canaanites and the Jebusites and so on and so forth, when they worshiped Moloch, they burned their babies alive and had sexual orgies and killed people and had perverse sexuality, because those rituals, those occult rituals, which are found in Satanism today, open a cosmic portal for demonic beings to enter the earth, which was the purpose of the Tower of Babel. So, these fallen angels were very aggressive, and they had sex and experimented with technology with a wide assortment of animals. That sounds disgusting, but you need to understand that the Levitical laws that forbade bestiality or sex with animals was given to the ancient children of Israel specifically because of what was going on between the fallen angels and human women having sex and men having sex with animals. This whole thing was like going crazy. So prior to the flood, these fallen angels had corrupted the DNA not only of the human race, which could have been in the billions, by the way, before the flood. They corrupted the DNA of the entire human race with Nephilim DNA. But they corrupted the DNA of the animal kingdom. And all the ancient legends, the Greek legends of the minotaurs and the mermaids and the half-human, half-horse figures that are prevalent in cultures throughout the world, these were not just fictional imaginations of animal-human creatures of all sorts, mermaids and a man's head or a woman's head and a horse's body and stuff. This just didn't come out of nowhere. This came directly out of the genetic experimentation with the fallen angels that was going on. So God had to instruct Noah, whose DNA was intact, and the family of Noah's family's DNA was intact. He was righteous in his generation, which also meant that he and his family, their DNA had not been corrupted. And did you ever ask yourself the question why God instructed Noah to build this massive ark and to bring all the animals in the animal kingdom into the ark 2 by 2? Well, obviously so they could mate. But why did he need to have them mate? Because the animals that he selected, their DNA had not been corrupted either. So what God did, and you can't understand the story of the flood of Noah and Noah's Ark without understanding genetics, DNA, transhumanism, interspecies breeding between animal, human, and fallen angel. You can't understand the flood unless you understand that the flood of Noah was a DNA, digital, holographic method that God used to wipe out corrupted DNA all over the earth. And then after he wipes out the corrupted DNA that the Nephilim had corrupted. Now remember that these super civilizations with advanced science and advanced technology, like Atlantis, like the rumored Thule Island of the mythological German super Nordic god race that inhabited Hyperborea, or Vril, and according to the Nordic legends, this blonde-haired, blue-eyed super race which had come from the stars to escape the flood built a massive civilization under the earth called Hyperborea. That was an essential part of their belief system. And you see this